They made you work, huh?
Oh, hello, cameraman!
Познакомьтесь, это Лена.
Вау, супер! Вау!
Yekaterinburg has become the model of what a Russian city can become. In the Soviet era, it was involved in defense industries. It is now a post-industrial city with prosperous and hard-working people, and its buildings show it. It has the tallest building in Russia outside of Moscow, with several more skyscrapers under construction. The city straddles Europe and Asia. Lena Novomieskaya, director for the Center for Citizen Initiatives in the Ural region, has selected a historian guide for us, Konstantin Brylyakov. Konstantin will inform us about this important city's evolution, from the time of Tsarist monarchy, through the Soviet era, to the career of Boris Yeltsin, and to the present.
Not the last one. Later on I'll show you the new perspective business part of Yekaterinburg, called Ekaterinburg City, where we're going to build 4 other skyscrapers. Crossing the river Iset, and this is the proof that we're in Asia, because this is the Asian river. Iset joins river Tura, Tura joins river Tobol, Tobol joins river Irtish, Irtish joins river Ob, and Ob is one of the biggest rivers in Siberia. One of our malls. There are 34 malls in Yekaterinburg. The image of our city in the Soviet time was mostly connected with defense industry, different military factories, heavy industries, metal producing, machine building. But now it's more like a post-industrial city. To the right is the Church of Saint Maximilian, which was built in 1870s. Then in 1930 it was destroyed, completely demolished by Bolsheviks, and recently restored on the same spot. During weekends we organize different festivals and concerts here, and the monument to Vladimir Lenin is still there. We'll return back and try to make a special stop here for you. Meantime, we got onto the Boris Yeltsin Street.
Right.
To the right is our parliament, the parliament of our region. You can see the coat of arms of our province, Sverdlovskaya Oblast. The Soviet government invested money, attracted people, and they built even more powerful industrial complex here, especially strategically important during the Second World War, when we built majority of Russian tanks and cannons here. Since that time, the city and the province were closed for foreigners because of military secrets. And American intelligence was interested in, and your government sent spy planes in 1950s to make pictures of top secret Russian factories along the Urals. Because we were far away from the borders, it was a good location.
Yeah.
Time of Cold War. Yeah. I hope that we turn that page. Well, now we are not far away from the river, and what you can see is in fact the lake on the river. The lake was created by means of a dam which is downstream, and we call it the city pond. On the map it's written there, the city pond. Okay. But wherever you go in the Urals, all the Russian towns, all were built according to the same technological scheme. In the beginning of the 18th century, steam engines were not invented yet, and the Russians built dams on rivers to create the lakes, and then they built mills on other side of the dams. So these mills, they were used to drive all these machines and mechanisms of all factories.
So this is all runoff from the snow?
Snow melts, and we have also occasional rains. In the spring season, when we have a so-called seasonal flood, level of waters are quite high, which was very important for rivers on the western side of the Urals, because the rivers to the west side, they all follow to Kama or Volga, biggest European Russian rivers. And metal items which were produced here in the 18th and the 19th century were transported to the west along the rivers, which were the only roads here, so-called iron caravans. It was a well-organized system of delivering transportation of all these items. So this is the water share here in the Urals between European rivers and Siberian rivers. And in the 18th, 19th century, when we had no roads, only rivers, it was very important, not just the water share, but the divide between two different transport networks. And then in 1923, Soviet government changed the name of the city to Sverdlovsk, after Yakov Sverdlov, who was one of the leaders of Bolshevik Revolution and first prime minister of the first Bolshevik government. He died in 1923, and because of his activities here in 1905, 1906, local workers decided to change the name. Instead of the Empress, Catherine I, the city was named after Yakov Sverdlov, one of the leaders of Bolshevik Revolution. And the province is still named Sverdlovsk Oblast, Sverdlovskaya Oblast. But the city returned the original name back in 1991. And in 1991, the city was opened for foreign guests. Since that time, we've been developing direct contacts with foreign countries, with global business. And I must say, Yekaterinburg is very successful now. Definitely it's a wealthy city, but hardworking. This is the real wealth, the wealth created by hardworking locals. So behind you, to the left side of me, you can see the new business area called Ekaterinburg City, kind of a local mini Manhattan under construction. You see the Isay Tower, 210 meters, the highest building in Russia outside of Moscow. The first skyscraper here, but not the last one. Boris Yeltsin passed away in 2007, and this street was named after him and the biggest university where he graduated from, the Ural Federal University now, named after Yeltsin. Boris Yeltsin, he came to power in very difficult time, 1990s, and he was extremely popular in that time in the city and in all Russia. He was widely supported by locals. He started his both election campaigns from his native city. He made first speech here, and he was brave enough to start very painful but necessary economical reforms. He gave the economical freedom to Russians, and many people used that chance. They started their own business. He was not perfect. We criticize him. He made many mistakes because he privatized everything too quickly in favor of just limited number of people. The most interesting Russian industries, like most profitable industries, were privatized in a corrupt way, I must say. Like first Russian oligarchs. But at the same time, he never restricted freedom. He changed the country, and later on, in the end of 1990s, he stepped down himself in 2000. And actually, Michael Gorbachev, he gave us political freedom. Yeltsin, he gave us economical freedom, and he destroyed the old communist system. He changed the political system indeed.
Is he loved today by the Russians? Yeltsin?
It depends. It depends. Historians, they respect him, but at the same time, many Russians still blame Yeltsin that he destroyed the Soviet Union together with Michael Gorbachev. Many people feel kind of nostalgia. They are homesick for great Soviet Union. But you know, it's normal. It's a human nature. They already forget about queues in the shops, about shortage of very simple stuff, about monopolized political life. And the new generation is growing now anyway. We are much more free now than we were in the Soviet time. The Putin, who came to power in 2000 when Yeltsin stepped down himself, it was another important act that he stepped down himself without any force. Putin was lucky. He harvested the results of economical reforms initiated by Yeltsin, and prices for oil jumped up. So I must say that people, they do not recognize it as a kind of achievement of Yeltsin. They recognize it as achievement of Putin. But I am personally, my opinion as a historian, I think that Yeltsin created foundation for the next economical growth of the country. That's why in this city, locals respect him. Like not all people, but well-educated people respect Yeltsin. And we still remember all good projects he initiated when he was the governor of our province. You see the monument to Boris Yeltsin to the right side of you? He was a student of our technical university. He played volleyball very well. He was a tall, handsome guy. And he started his successful political career as a Komsomol leader of this technical school, the political organization of young communists, let's say. Probably because of his achievements in sports, he was elected. But he was a good manager. He met his wife in Ekaterinburg, Naina. She is a widow now. She lives in Moscow, but she's quite often visited here. They both had great tradition to meet with their schoolmates in Yekaterinburg. Our city during the Soviet time was very industrial, and in 1980s, for example, when our city was named Sverdlovsk, Russians, they thought that there were only big factories here, heavy industries and nothing more. And indeed, there are big factories around the city and suburbs. You can't see any heavy industries in the downtown. But, for example, on the northern part of the city, there is a Uralmash machine building plant, which was built in the beginning of 1930s, and it was the biggest machine building plant in the whole Soviet Union. They employed 60,000 workers in 1980s. It's located on the northern side of the city. There is another factory, Ural Elektrotяжмаш, Ural Химмаш on the south, Verkhnytsia factory on the west. So the country is surrounded by big industrial parks. And there are also residential areas nearby. One more time, you can see the main square of the city, the square of 1905 revolution. The square was established in the beginning of the 18th century as a big market, and it was called the Trade Square at that time. Then later on, in the middle of the 18th century, big cathedral was built here, and the square got new name, the Cathedral Square. That cathedral was destroyed in 1930 by young communists. Unfortunately, we lost it, and I think forever. Only after the end of the Second World War, the city hall was built, and now it's a new architectural dominanta of the main square of Ekaterinburg. This is the city hall, so the mayor of the city manager, and our parliament of Yekaterinburg, they use that building. The city hall is a great example of neoclassicist style, the Soviet Stalin's empire, we call it sometimes. And there are 16 statues on top of the building. They are symbols of different kinds of working professions, different types of proletariat. In the old days, in the end of imperial time, the square looked different. The cathedral was here right in the center as a symbol of the Russian Orthodox religion. The market nearby was a symbol of Russian nation. And right here on the eastern side of the square was a monument to the Emperor Alexander II, the liberator, who abolished serfdom in Russia in 1861. And official ideology of the Russian Empire in the end of the 19th century was based on this unity of these three symbols: Russian Orthodox Church, absolutist monarchy, and Russian nation. Then the revolution began. And this city was very pro-Bolshevik, one of the most radical centers of Bolshevik revolution in the country. Local workers, local proletariat, they hated monarchy. And first they tried to get rid of symbols of that monarchy. They dismissed this monument to the emperor from a big pedestal. Instead of the emperor's monument, they erected the Statue of Liberty, like in New York, but smaller. Female figure with torch, the symbol of freedom. But civil war began, and White Army, which fought against Bolsheviks, came into the city. In the end of July 1918, the pedestal was empty for 1 year, till beginning of August 1919. Then the Red Army returned back. And new Soviet authorities decided to use the Tsar pedestal again. They erected the small head of Karl Marx on this big pedestal, which was made for the full-size figure of the emperor. It looked quite funny because of disproportion. And then Soviet authorities requested professional sculptor Stepan Erzya, very talented avant-gardist, to make a full-size figure of a free labor man. And the sculptor, who was very talented, he made a white marble statue of man free of any clothes, which was standing back to the church, the main cathedral of the city. And it was too much. In 1921, locals called that statue Ivan Naked, or Vanka Goli, or Little Ivan Naked. And it was time of, revolutionary enthusiasm, time of changes.
They're going to open it in 2023.
The industrial significance of Yekaterinburg became even more important during the Soviet time, during time of Soviet industrialization or industrial revolution. And in the 1970s, when we celebrated 250 years anniversary, we built the capsule of time. In 1973, we celebrated 250 years anniversary. So here it's written, the capsule of time, to open in 2023.
Oh, okay.
Soon. Inside the capsule, Soviet authorities prepared a kind of a portrait of Soviet Sverdlovsk with statistic figures about achievements of our city up to 1973. The architectural models, examples of production of big Soviet factories, but the most interesting is the so-called the letter to descendants, or message to next generations. It must be very interesting reading. In 2023 we will open it and we will read something like, "Dear grandchildren, you are much happier when we were, because obviously you live under the communism. There's no money, no private property, just love and friendship between all people in the world. Please remember about us, people who created the foundation of the next dream." Yeah. So communism is not built yet, but we have a few years to realize the dream. We will do our best. So anyway, we must respect the Soviet period, which was very significant for development of Yekaterinburg. 100 years ago, in the end of imperial time, the city was important but small, 95,000 inhabitants. So Yekaterinburg grew up since 1930s. In the end of 1930s, the population of the city was already 450,000 inhabitants. In 1967, 1 million. Now almost 1.5 million, but the real size is 2.2 million, as I have told you. Old buildings of the factory were made of wood. They all gone. The dam is the only structure which survives since that time. But now there are stone walls here. Inside there is a foundation made of large trees, which turns into kind of a petrified wood in the water. Under the reign of Peter the Great, but Yekaterinburg was a Russian Cinderella. St. Petersburg was the beloved son of the Russian Empire. Now Ekaterinburg is more and more famous as a city of tourism, and when we have guests from St. Petersburg, they like to see this connection between these two cities. Let's go. So you can see a big piece of rhodonite, one of the symbols of the Urals. But we have, this is a very famous mineral from the Urals called rhodonite in Russian, or rhodonite. They turned this industrial park into the public square in 1970s. Since that time we use it for different festivals and meetings. And Boris Yeltsin, he made his first speeches before elections on the other side, where you see these two staircases. Yeah. They built a big podium for this speech. You can see the monument to two founders of Yekaterinburg. We can speak about kind of an interesting dualism of Yekaterinburg since the beginning of its history. The city was built almost on the geographical divide between Europe and Asia. The city was divided by the river Iset on the western part, which was called the Chancellor side or the trade side, and the eastern part, which was called the church side. The first church was built here. And the city has two founders. Vasily Tatishev, Russian officer, he chose the place for the city and he designed the project. He was a Russian gentleman with Asian-looking face. He is on the right side, in the long wig. Then the city was built by Dutch officer on Russian service, William George de Heinen, a European gentleman. So the city has two faces, Asian and European. And these two gentlemen are very famous. Two first heads of Ural sectors and works. They replaced each other in this position. They both played very important role, and this monument was erected here in 1998 when we celebrated another anniversary. We respect them both, but if you ask locals who is who, where is Tatishev and where is de Heinen, not all people can recognize him. So now we can see the Dutch gentleman, he has triangle hat, and the Russian guy has a long wig. Vasily Tatishev and William George de Heinen. The city was built in 1723, and in 1745 first gold. Of St. Catherine, which was built quite recently in 1994 on the site of the first church of the city, which was named after St. Catherine, patron of mining or patron of crafts. And for a long time it was the main church of mining officers. The church originally was made of wood, gone with fire, and then in the end of the 18th century, they built a quite high stone church with bell tower. the Church of St. Catherine. Unfortunately, we lost it in 1930. As you can guess, was a kind of campaign against religion here. And old churches in the downtown all were destroyed except one, which was turned into a museum, the Church of Ascension of the Christ. Now the little chapel is kind of a reminder that the city got its name after wife of Peter the Great, Yekaterina the Empress, and after Saint Yekaterina, Saint Catherine, patron of mining business. I'd like to draw your attention to the building, which is the new architectural dominanta of that square now. It was built in the end of 1920s as the house of the Soviets, the office of the Regional Communist Party Committee. In the end of 1920s, best Soviet architects were involved, and they were inspired by great ideas of socialism. Instead of old art and old architectural styles, which were extremely decorated, you know, like these palaces, Soviet architects denied it, and they designed the new style, very new, futuristic. The style, first romantic style of revolution, which was called constructivist style. And this is a perfect example. You see the combination of simple geometrical lines and forms, big windows with rhythm of lines. Function became the most important for the Soviet architects. Museum of Poetry and Science Fiction, built in 1912 by architect Yankovsky for merchant Ivanov. Then there is a fancy bar here called Pushkin Bar and some open-air concert hall. At weekend we organize different concerts here. You see already the list of performances. It's the next building to the right is Museum of Dolls and Literature for Children. And then the small theater called the Chamber Theater. Now we are turning and we will park somewhere here. It was a period of great positive development. The speed of growth of the Russian economy was the highest in the world. 80% of citizens of the country, they lived in the countryside, they were peasants, and they loved their monarchs. It was absolutist monarchy. Romanovs were in power since 1613. Nicholas II was the 18th monarch of that line, and the most tragic one.